My research focuses on how human well-being and ecological sustainability are measured in the Nordic countries. And it is grounded in so-called well-being and sustainability paradox, most visible among developed nations, including Nordics. And as you see on the graph, they have high human development, often reflected in high material well-being, high educational systems, life expectancy, and strong social systems. But it also comes with a price, high ecological footprint. And this research emerged from the growing interest and need among governments globally, including Nordics, to embrace new indicators that would include both human well-being and ecological sustainability dimensions to help them guide, hopefully, better towards national policy making. And it is particularly relevant in times of current ecological and social crisis. And the governments in Nordics have been shifting away, at least attempting to, away from GDP as the main measure of the progress, and due to its limitations, not capturing either human well-being or environmental degradation. And they've been turning to beyond GDP metrics or well-being economy indicators that are the broader measures of the progress and that consider both human and planet well-being. And while Nordic countries are often seen as leaders in ecological stewardship, their current policy integrating human well-being and ecological sustainability has remained limited, and in this research, I've been exploring it in detail. So this is the slide on the literature review. It's been really huge. And it's been also very, very helpful. It contributed to understanding of the complex and multidimensional nature of both human well-being and ecological sustainability. The concept of well-being in this research is grounded in the theory of basic needs and capabilities. And I've been encompassing both the objective and subjective dimensions of well-being. And also in the literature review, I've been going through such like prominent framework like OECD Better Life initiatives, and I'll be probably calling it further well-being frameworks, OECD well-being frameworks. And this particular one extends beyond material aspects of well-being and including other aspects of quality of life, also highlighting the importance of social, environmental dimensions of well-being, and also subjective, self-reported dimensions of well-being. And generally, literature review helped examine how human well-being connects to ecological sustainability, and that the concept of ecological approach to human well-being recognize that human ability to satisfy our basic needs. It is fundamentally connected to the health of ecosystems and the healthy functioning of ecosystems. And because we need it for providing us shelter, food, water, and other climate regulations that directly support our well-being. So the large part of literature review also was dedicated to exploring the key milestones in the development of beyond GDP indicators and well-being frameworks. And there have been a wide range of beyond GDP metrics developed. And the group of scientists from WISE Horizon maps over 300 of them, and later they narrowed it down to 66. This is the vice triangle figure illustrated on the screen. Despite the development of wide range of beyond GDP metrics, there is still no one set of universally accepted and standardized indicator set. And that has been a challenge in this research to select indicators for measuring the well-being and sustainability in Nordic countries. And after careful analysis, I selected the following one on the screen. And they are also, just to give them credibility, on this triangle, wise triangle. So they are Human Development Index and Social Progress Index. They are chosen for capturing broader human well-being dimensions. And while HDI has been very well established and recognized indicator, it captures such dimensions as education, and life expectancy and income. The Social Progress Index captures much broader well-being dimensions, and it includes both objective and subjective well-being. And it is not measuring directly life satisfaction. However, it offers meaningful insights into several factors that kind of contribute towards it. And also it measures, it is basically composites around over 50 indicators, 56. So it's kind of broader picture of social and environmental well-being and opportunity and freedom dimension also included there. SDGI was used for tracking sustainable index. SDGI index was using for tracking sustainable development goal progress, and the ecological footprint was chosen as a metric of ecological sustainability that captures the environmental pressure linked to human consumption, which is particularly relevant in Nordic regions with high level of consumption. And the important also takeaway from the literature review was that previous study constantly stress the interrelationship between well-being and ecological metrics, stating that well-being gains are often achieved with rising ecological pressure. And the lack of detailed analysis in the Nordic context made this research also particularly relevant. Just drink some water. Okay, so here are the research questions. Number one, how are the ecological sustainability and human well-being currently measured at the national level, and how are these dimensions applied and interconnected in the Nordic countries, and how do existing national well-being economy frameworks in the Nordic countries measure and integrate ecological sustainability with human development. And the study case focus on those 5 countries: Denmark, Finland, Iceland, Norway, and Sweden. Okay, so in the slide on methodology reveals to a mixed method approach, and the first one, quantitative analysis of the selected indicators that include a temporal, cross-country, and more detailed indicator analysis, and also correlation analysis over the 22-year period. And I used MySQL for all calculation and Excel for the visual presentation of the findings. And the second approach is qualitative analysis of existing national well-being frameworks, indicators of Nordic countries, and I used mapping method, and I will talk about it later. Otherwise, yeah, we'll go straight to findings related to the first question. So, the slide summarizes the ecological performance of the Nordic countries as part of ecological footprint methodology, and it focuses on two values, biocapacity and ecological footprint consumption. Probably I should introduce what is ecological footprint. It measures how much of the biologically productive area is required to support human consumption and waste. And biocapacity measure how much of biologically productive land and water area available to provide resources to meet that human consumption and absorb the waste. Ecological footprint methodology also can be compared to the accounting system that tracks both demand ecological footprint and supply by capacity, and it's expressed in units of world average by capacity by productive area referred to global hectares, and each of it correspond to specific land use type. The graph on the slide illustrates by capacity components in each country associated to 5 type land use that are cropland, grazing land, forest land, fishing ground, build-up land, and carbon footprint. I will just briefly go over this, and also they are presented. The values are presented in per capita for the possibility to do country comparison analysis. So all of them correspond to also different colors. As you can guess, forest land is in green color, and it is the highest, for example, in Finland. Then it followed by Sweden and Norway. Just a brief overview of what we see. Then Iceland is the bottom figure, left bottom, has the highest biocapacity per capita in the region. However, it has even the higher ecological footprint consumption, and it is primarily due to the fishing ground component. It is, as you can guess, in blue color. And the Denmark has the lowest by capacity, and the second highest after Iceland, the ecological footprint. And also the overall observation that the both values per capita have been declining. And the following findings of the research on ecological footprint methodology are related to the attempts to define sustainability, the level of sustainability of the studied countries by comparing ecological footprint and by capacity. And the results were different depending on how we evaluate, what benchmark we use for that. For example, when using national biocapacity benchmark, Finland, Norway, and Sweden operate within their own biocapacity. As you can see, the ecological footprint consumption, it is represented by the solid red line on the graph, is lower than the total national biocapacity, the summary of all these colorful components. And that shows ecological reserve, and this suggests relative sustainability in those countries. And when using global biocapacity benchmark, not the national, just said before national, I was saying global, then Nordic countries overshoot global biocapacity as ecological footprint consumption. In this case, this red solid line is higher than the global biocapacity that presented by this dashed red line. It's at the bottom almost on each of the graph. And this shows the ecological deficit in all countries, and that kind of proves them being unsustainable. So why I'm like having this irony while I'm talking about it, because it's basically proving that sustainability is context-dependent dimension. It's a complex dimension, and it also varies depending on the benchmark. And it's, unfortunately, there is not some straightforward solution to this too. And as mentioned earlier, the findings show that there is an overall decline in ecological footprint consumption and biocapacity per capita values. in the studied period from 2000 to 2022. However, the further analysis also revealed that those declines were mostly due to population increase and some methodological adjustment. So I also explored ecological sustainability through studying them on studying SDGI at indicator level, and also on the next slide you will see it for SPI, the similar analysis. I did this kind of snapshot of the last year analysis, and it revealed interesting pattern in performance among so-called ecological sustainable development goals. So this color-coded dashboard presents indicators that classified kind of lower indicators below 70, and just to remind you that they scale from 1 to 100. So it's kind of been decided that for the purpose of this research, it's a low performance it will be below 70, and in red it's the weakest color indicators. Then they followed by orange and yellow, and you see that there are a lot of colors on the slide. So all of them indicating a low score in those areas. So it's connected to sustainable consumption and production, and climate action, and life below water and on the land. However, the social and economic SDGI indicators all above 70, they're not presented here, I'm just letting you know, and often they're even higher. So, and then also similar analysis, the kind of snapshot analysis was performed for SPI, but before I move to SPI, I will also mention that the overall Human Development Index and the SPI index always perform very, very, very well. They are above 90 over the whole period of studies. And when I looked at this detailed snapshot for SPI, as it didn't make sense to do it for HDI, as SPI already include these domains of education and life expectancy, so I only done it for SPI. So it revealed the following areas of concern, like diet, housing affordability, and health problems that showed to be from weak to moderate across Nordics, and below or just at global benchmark, with certain issues in waste recovery domain in Iceland being low. So the takeaway that Nordic excel in total HDI and SPI, but the more detailed analysis reveals certain issues in some areas of well-being. And it's still quantitative finding related to quantitative finding, but it's second part of my quantitative finding research related to correlations. So this slide presents the result of Pearson correlation analysis between human well-being indicators and ecological impacts in the Nordic countries. In most cases, correlation analysis show negative correlation between ecological footprint and human well-being and development indicators. So to the left, you have HDI with AFC, and to the right, you have SDGI and AFC, two graphs. And everything to the left, it represents negative correlation, and to the right, it represents positive. So if you look at the total, so it's the total, I don't know how well you see it, but you should see it's the total, it's all in the left upper corner. So they have pretty strong, they have strong and very strong negative correlation. And I'm not presenting here SPI on this slide, but the result is similar. As for these two other indicators. This suggests that while human development and well-being improves, then ecological impacts tend to decrease, and this contrasts with much of the literature, with which often find trade-offs between human well-being and ecological sustainability. So yeah, that was an interesting finding. However, you can also see that the correlation analysis for each of ecological footprint components revealed mixed results. It shows also positive correlation, so it kind of indicates different economic activities produce like different patterns of trade-offs and synergies with human well-being and development. So yeah, the takeaway that countries demonstrate strong human development while coexisting with reduced ecological pressure. However, just we need to, of course, emphasize it, ecological footprint, while declining, still remain very high and far above sustainable threshold and above a global average. And the correlation analysis also included one more analysis. I made it to compare each SDGI that corresponds to each of 17 Sustainable Development Goals and the total ecological footprint consumption. And it revealed that there are very strong negative correlation in certain areas. For example, Sustainable Development Goal 3 that accounts for good health and well-being, and Sustainable Development Goal 5 and 7 and 9. However, for economic growth, Goal 8, it's in the middle. For all 5 countries, we can see, we can observe trade-off between economic activity and environmental sustainability. And of course, it's from weak to strong. Not all countries have the same results, but still all of them are, show positive correlation. So it kind of shows to us that there is a trade-off between these activities. The economy happen at the expense of environment, the economy growth. And I will move to the my second research question now. Just to remind you what it was about. It is about how national well-being economy frameworks in the Nordic countries measure and integrate ecological sustainability with human well-being. Just maybe like a little introduction that the concept of well-being economy has been developed and getting more and more popular and integrated among OECD members, among European and Western countries, including Nordic countries, and they've been kind of recognizing importance to move, as I mentioned earlier, away from GDP and incorporate framework that would integrate the ideas of human well-being and nature, the well-being of nature, and often as a guidance they used OECD well-being framework and UN SDG framework. So for this reason, I was using this 11 dimensions of OECD well-being framework and map them to each of the indicator from each of the studied countries' national framework. And I've done the same for 17 SDGs, 17 goals. It's interesting. I wouldn't have so much time to say, but I have to say that existing national well-being economy frameworks in the Nordics, they are, as you can see, very different already from the data on the screen in the way how they are measured and also how they're integrated in actual policy. Denmark doesn't have official framework, but the Wellbeing Economy Lab is advocating for one, so I guess it's going to be implemented soon. Finland is pretty newly established. It's launched a Wellbeing Indicator project in 2022, choosing for it 15 indicators. And currently, it's establishing a national steering governance framework based on strategies and strong emphasis on embedding this goal into policy making. This is where they were very strong emphasis. Iceland is the most established using well-being indicators. They introduced them in 2019 already, and they are 40 indicators, and also they've been used in not only for monitoring, but also for prioritizing, and also being included in fiscal strategies. And Norway is the most recent one. It's been established. They evaluating a well-being framework called Quality of Life Strategy has been established in 2024, and they chose 55 indicators in total, with the focus mainly on current well-being. And Sweden have the indicators already been embedded in the budget strategy in 2017. However, they are not really fully integrated in policy prioritization. They are mostly staying at monitoring stage, and they haven't been using them for policy making. So I will just go over the results of this part of the findings. It was very helpful to do that analysis I've just mentioned above. It was helping to identify areas where we have low represented and missing indicators, and generally highlighting weak performance areas. So as you can see, this slide revealed that some well-being indicators are low represented in Nordic well-being frameworks, and critical gaps remain in certain in the following domains of housing, safety, work-life balance, civic engagement, subjective well-being. So this is where the indicators were either not present, or according to the classification chosen for this research, they've been considered to be low presented, and therefore they create risk of overlooking important aspects of well-being related to living conditions, security, working conditions, and democracy and citizens' rights. So this is one part of the finding. Then there were still strongly presented indicators. However, there were criticism if they capture, let's say, the right domains. For example, health indicators, they overlook obesity and mental health and diet quality, as those areas appear to be having issues among Nordic population. And when we look at income and job, let's say, indicators, they mask environmental costs, as we looked at earlier correlation analysis, and also global inequality. For example, the fatal work-related accidents and modern slavery embodied in imports indicators, they score very low in this region. And therefore, there is a concern that these indicators not fully present and capture the sustainability and well-being. And the separate slide was dedicated to ecological sustainable development goals and environmental quality indicators. I grouped them together here. So the interesting findings that from the perspective of OECD environmental quality, these indicators are presented relatively well. With such indicators, so the indicators they're choosing for that are usually greenhouse gas emissions, air and water quality, material footprint, waste recycling, access to green spaces. So kind of its focus on local environment. When we're looking at, however, from the perspective of sustainable development goals, then ecological sustainability shows a lot of weak areas, and they are corresponded to certain agricultural practices and consumption, responsible consumption and production, climate resilience, and life below water and on land. So these indicators are either low covered or entirely missing, and that creates a risk of overlooking and ignoring the number of very crucial environmental issues. And so, like, what I'm kind of taking from this and bringing it up to you, that current well-being framework overlook outsourced environmental pressure. Also, biodiversity of land and marine, terrestrial and freshwater protection at national level. And they also give a false sense of progress while ignoring long-term ecological limits, and for that we should incorporate for the future well-being. So the current well-being frameworks in Nordic countries established have as a main focus on local environmental performance, and it's not equal to so they have a strong local performance, which is not equal to global ecological sustainability. I kind of concluding now, and I was intending to, with this thesis, with this research, to provide insights into how sustainability and well-being are measured and interconnected in the Nordic countries, and to inform the development also of national well-being frameworks in the Nordics. But also it's a broader and more important issue that hopefully this research will contribute to the critical debates on this kind of contradictory topic, how to balance sustainability with well-being. And certain areas of further research have been suggested. As we saw, like some signs of decoupling would be interesting to explore the causalities of ecological footprint and well-being metrics. I'm not very experienced in this, in statistical metrics. So if I choose to do it, I need to take a course on statistics. And also, I'm really passionate about this second part on exploring other frameworks and do the comparison and observe certain tendencies. So thank you very much for your time.